parallel lines. Everything's alright when she calls me back. She calls me back. Look at me and don't you lie. I could be your sack. Wake you up. Only I could fall asleep. I love you when the ocean's dry. I love you when the rivers freeze. There's a bite at your edges, to lie awake restless. Why am I so obsessive, hanging on to every sentence? This town's the same as you left it. Your page was blank, but I read it. I still dial 822993167. Oh, there was heaven in your eyes. I was not baptized. Everything's alright when she calls me back. She calls me back. Lost for a long time. Two parallel lines. Everything's alright when she calls me back. She calls me back. Well, she calls me back. Oh, the pain I should have saved, though I was too afraid of living life in your footsteps. In your heart, open your way. Oh, I was too afraid of living life in your footsteps. Living life in your footsteps. Living life in your footsteps. Still she calls me back. Still she calls me. I don't think the weather could predict how much it rained this morning. I don't watch the forecast, but I think a hurricane is coming. It feels darker, and I don't know of any way to stop it. And I don't think we'll ever be the same. Don't know if there's anyone to blame. I just said goodbye, my love. Done nothing but cry for us. I knew a sky could get so gray. It's time to put my umbrella away. I just packed my winter coat away. I've put it in the garage, next to all the Polaroids I took. I guess she couldn't care less. You got cold. was anyone to blame. I just said goodbye, my love. Done nothing but try for us. I knew the sky could get so gray. It's time to put my umbrella away. I just said goodbye, my love. Done nothing but cry for us. I knew the sky could get so gray. It's time to put my umbrella away. Dancing on puddles mirroring light from up above. Raindrops showing small reflections of the way we were. Dancing on puddles mirroring light from up above. Raindrops showing small reflections of the way we were. I just said goodbye, my love. Done nothing but cry for us. I knew the sky could get so gray. It's time to put my umbrella away. I just said goodbye, my love. Done nothing but try for us. Who knew the sky could get so gray? It's time to put my umbrella away.
Please take your seats. The program will begin in 5 minutes.
Awkward. I'm trying so hard to be cool. Way back in high school, I'm at a dance and he walks in, but she came with him. I'm in a dress I hope he loves. He could look my way as if to say, Rachel, you're the one. Would you walk my way if I moved like this? If I blew a kiss now, would you only see me in a crowded room fully consumed? I want you. It's all just white noise when I hear your voice. Everything is white noise but you. Would you say my name in the pouring rain, or just to say I love you? Would you hold my heart if I came to you? Would you have a clue? I want you. Everything is white noise but you. best almost date I've ever had. Would you look my way if we were like this? If I
Please take your seats. The program is about to begin.
Walk in your rainbow paradise. Strawberry lipstick state of mind.
Please welcome to the stage Bloomberg's Lisa Mateo.
Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. How are you? Hope you're enjoying your lunch. Welcome. Yeah, I got the thumbs up. It's good. Okay. Welcome to our afternoon lunch breakout session. It is the technology empowering growth. Now, for decades, growth has been about scale. It's been about globalization. But now it's starting to talk about leveraging technology and partnerships to scale. But technology isn't the only growth story, correct? It's also about adoption, execution, leadership, because let's face it, I mean, you have the same tools that are available to everyone. The game changer isn't, who can have access to AI, it's who can integrate it the best way possible. Now, there are some challenges, right? There are cybersecurity risks. We talk about the regulatory landscape always constantly shifting. Talent strategies, those are shifting too. But with those disruptions comes opportunity. And that's what this is all about today. You're going to hear from a number of companies who will talk about how they're using technology and AI to increase productivity, to create new products and services to better serve their customers. So get ready for all the innovation and information that you need right here on this stage. Before we get things started, though, I'd like to thank our title sponsor, Invesco QQQ, for all of their support and supporting this luncheon as well. Next, feel free to take some notes. Feel free to take some pictures if you want. If you're on social media, hashtag Bloomberg Invest. Don't forget about that as well. All right, I'd like to welcome to the stage now Paul Schroeder. He is Director of Factor and QQQ Equity Product Strategy for Invesco with our opening remarks.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much, Lisa. Paul Schroeder with Invesco. And for those of you that have been here since 8:30 this morning, this is the third time you're hearing me speak, and I promise it's the last. So I appreciate your time and attention today, and thank you for joining us for the lunch. Real quick show of hands. Has anyone attended Bloomberg Invest before? Fantastic. I've had the opportunity, as you've heard me say earlier, attend a lot of different events from Bloomberg Tech to Bloomberg Invest, and Lisa and I have done a number of smaller regional events that look and feel a lot like this lunch, where a smaller room, we get industry leaders on the stage to discuss very impactful topics, and I really feel that these sort of discussions have been some of the best that I've seen with the different events that we've partnered with Bloomberg on. Now, with today's specific topic, I'm very excited to hear about. Having covering the Qs now for 5 years, especially over the last 3 or 4, my world and time has been allocated so much to data centers and hardware and software. Really where we're going to see a lot of impact in the years to come, whether it's AI or just technology in general, is going to be from the businesses that we're going to hear from today. How are these different technologies going to be propelling their businesses forward, whether it's finance or someplace else, is really the impact, the next leg up, in my opinion, that we'll see from this overall lift that we've been seeing over the past 3 years. The last thing that I wanted to mention to you all is that Invesco's CEO, Andrew Schlossberg, will be on the main stage at 2:15, where he'll be discussing how technology and how things are changing the overall asset management landscape and specific to Invesco. So I hope you all are able to join him for that. But thank you very much for your time. Enjoy your lunch, And Lisa, I'll pass it back to you. Thank you.
All right. Saul Van Beurden, welcome.
Lisa Matteo.
Welcome. I am
Thank
very
you.
excited because this is your first public appearance in this new role at Wells Fargo. So this is an
You bet.
exciting time.
Oh, it is.
It is, it is. So I want to set the table for everyone just to give you the background. So you started as a head of technology. Then you went to the CEO of consumer banking, small business banking. Now you're the co-CEO of new consumer banking and lending, but also the head of AI.
Yeah.
So all those transitions that you went together, talk us how that helped prepare you for where you are now, from role
wow.
to role.
Yeah, there's a story there. First of all, thanks for having me here, Lisa. It's great to be here. If you look at each role is built on the last role or couple of roles that you had. So if you look at my resume, you will see I've been leading large technology domains, transforming technology domains for the last 15, 20 years. And it taught me a couple of generic leadership skills. First of all, setting an aspirational strategy. Secondly, creating the followership that is needed by winning the hearts and minds of your people. And then three is really the biggest thing, executing a strategy. So when Charlie came with the question in 2023, do you want to lead the consumer and small business bank, I had to think about it for 48 hours, had a conversation with my wife, decided to do it for one other skill set that is really important for a consumer bank CEO, and that is the knowledge of technology, a deep knowledge of technology. Everything is at scale. We serve 55 million customers. You cannot have manual processes or brittle automated processes. Now, and then just a few months ago, we did something that was logic and a statement. Two things. The logic, we integrated two lines of business that were serving the same set of customers. We had consumer lending, led by my dear friend, Kleber Santos, and co-CEO, and we had consumer and small business merging together, looking at the customer through one lens instead of two lenses. That also allowed me to free up some time to start taking on the statement type of role, which is AI and running the AI program. It says something. It says something about it's important for the company, it's business-led, and it's focused on the customer and the clients that we have.
Now you mentioned a word when you were just talking, strategy.
Yeah.
What is your strategy in this new role?
Yeah. The strategy is simple. If you look at generative AI, agentic AI, all of us here in the room will agree it's transformative technology, right? So for us, the strategy is to fundamentally transform how the bank operates. And that means making our people, especially our bankers, more productive. It means making the customer experience even better with the help of AI. And last but not least, removing manual work also with the help of AI. Now, strategy is great, but you need to have a couple of principles that we are very disciplined upon to execute that strategy. So we focus on the highest impact use cases measured by ROI. That's where we prioritize our resources and investments, but we leave a little bit of money and just enough people to also constantly explore new versions of LLMs that are coming in, new agent technologies that are getting rolled out. So you need to focus, but at the same time, you need to keep on learning. That's one. Two, AI upskilling. If there's one word that I can leave behind here, it would be upskilling. Making sure that your people, our people, are like confident in using and working with AI. And the last one is a sense of urgency. I talk faster than I normally do, and that's really because of the sense of urgency of what is happening in the market with AI. But you cannot allow that to happen at the expense of safety. So risk and risk management is a very important thing while you roll out a whole set of new technologies.
Excellent. And we're going to dig into that too in a little bit. I want to talk more about the different sections of Wells Fargo, because you have consumer banking and lending, right? You have commercial corporate investing, wealth investment management. Can you give us some specific use cases or examples where you're using AI in those different sectors?
Yeah, we have plenty of use cases. And before I answer the question, we like to think about use cases as patterns or groupings of use cases that intend to do the same. Because if you see everything as a unique use case, you build it 15 times, well, maybe you could build it once and use it across the company. So if you look at the groupings of use cases that we have, and I will give an example per grouping, The first one will be really banker productivity. We have wholesale bankers, we have the wealth management advisors, and we have the licensed and personal bankers in the branches. If you look at the use case that I want to highlight, is really what is happening with the licensed bankers that we have in the branches. Today, they are preparing for a meeting with a client or an appointment with AI-generated summaries that are so precise and near real time that it really captures what is really needed for that conversation. On top of that, we have propensity models, the likelihood that somebody is going to accept a certain offer, that are now so strong that that together is leading to 25% more checking account openings, 25% more credit card openings, and also more deposit balance building. And this is this is compound revenue for the future. That's an important one. It also takes away for bankers this mundane task of gathering all the data before they meet. Now they can really focus on the conversation. The second grouping of use cases that we have is really in customer service. And we all know the use cases like in call centers and contact centers. We have them as well. We know the top 20 reasons for our customers to call us. And we started the rollout of agentic AI in the call centers. Another one is Fargo, which is our virtual assistant in the mobile app. It started on a very, it's by now almost an old natural language processing model from one of the big hyperscalers that we all know. And it did the job. We had over 1 billion interactions where our customers were asking Fargo for help. Every time we helped our customers, we avoided them for making a phone call. So they don't need to make the phone call or they don't need to go to the branch. They could help themselves. Now we're upgrading Fargo into a full LLM-generated type of virtual assistant. Then the last grouping, and then I will stop answering the question, Lisa. The last grouping is really about making sure that we remove manual work. And you go into the areas of case management, you know what I mean, where something comes into the bank. We have people looking at it, dispositioning it, next step needs to be made. Then somebody needs to assess what has happened. I give you complaint management as a great example. And then you need to create a kind of acknowledgement letter. That is so much agentic AI. So we are rolling out agentic AI in this type of processes in operations, and we do that at scale.
Now, with all that said, technology is definitely changing the way people work. How is it affecting different employees? Are certain roles leaving or certain roles advancing? How is it affecting the workplace?
Yeah, I spoke about upskilling, so I think that's a very important part of the answer. But yeah, of course, how work is done, I explained already for the bankers, their day is different. Instead of gathering all the data for the customers that they are going to see that day, they can really focus and rehearse their own conversation where needed with the branch manager. We have people in operations. If an agent now comes in, we have the first agents in QA, for instance, quality assurance and quality control. Their task is becoming to oversee the agent. Their task is to work with the agent to see, is this going in the right way? That is a different way of doing the role than you did before. Upskilling is so important. Upskilling means for us working with AI, overseeing an agent, being the overwatch, with confidence that you know how to do that. But there's something else that is important, and that's what we call employability. And we started this whole journey of keeping our people employable, to be able to bring them from work to work inside the company already years ago, before AI and generative AI came. We have internal colleges in the bank, consumer college, we have an operations college, we have a credit college, where people sign up for that college, and they can lay out their own path where they want to be in 3, 4, 7 years from now. And we lay out which expertise, experience they need to build up to get to that level. And it could be a very jumpy path that we are laying out. It's all automated and generated by a smart model. 60% of the folks on the consumer college have signed up for that. And what we see, and that's for me the most important part of the impact of AI, employability is a two-way street. We as an employer need to provide these tools by which your people stay employable inside the company, so you can bring them from work to work. And if that doesn't work, we make them employable for the labor market and for other companies to bring them from work to work.
Now, you touched upon something earlier, and I want to kind of dig a little bit deeper into there. It's the investment in technology and how you see kind of ROI you had mentioned. How do you measure success with this technology?
Measure success is a couple of different ways to look at it. It's ROI first, and ROI really means investments, the run cost of agents, and I tell you there are models where you pay $75 per token, and there are models where you pay $3 per token. And if you have a little bit of a massive model going on, the cost can be really high. So it's run and investment cost. And then for the benefits, we look at revenue increase. If it's really, we can mark it out as that's truly created by this model. It's always a little bit murky with revenue increase. And of course, the cost savings. And then you have the ROI. ROI is not the only thing. You also have to measure risk. Like for us, like AI incidents with material impact. If there would be an incident, you want to know, and you want to know why that happens. That's really balancing ROI. You want to make sure that your people are indeed employable. That's another one. So it's a balanced scorecard, if you want to call it like that we use to measure the success, not only on ROI, not only on risk, but also on the people component.
And an increased capacity means more customers. I mean, there's so many different ways to look at it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what about, you mentioned risk. So this is, I mean, banking is such a heavy regulated industry. How do you handle that with data?
Yeah, the risk of AI. Yeah. There's before I go there, there's the risk of non-action. So you could say, oh, the risk on AI is way too big, we're not going to do it. I think that risk is honestly bigger than starting to work with AI in a mindful way. There's a French philosopher who once said, like, if you invent a ship, you also invented the shipwreck. So think about the words like, and that's like for any new technology, it is a great new technology when it works, but it can be breached by bad actors. It can have a cyber issue, it can have a data leak issue, it can have a resiliency issue, whatever it is. So for us, risk management, Lisa, is our bread and butter as a bank, especially where we come from with our backdrop of the history. We have risk management in our genes. It's like the bread and butter. So what we do is really looking at generative AI, agentic AI. What are the new risks because of this? Or is it a new manifestation of the same risk? How do you mitigate it? Which controls do you need to build? Automated controls. Which ones are we already have? Which ones are new? Are they effective? If they are not effective, how do we make them effective? That you hear it saying, that's our risk model, that's how we work, that's how we think. Leading with a risk mindset is fully ingrained into the company. And that's what we do with AI, as much as we do with blockchain, as much as we do with any other new type of technology that comes in.
Now, risk, you mentioned risk. The company has been under regulatory actions over the past few years. You've been very, very transparent about it. Yeah. So when you think about that, and then now your asset class has been, asset cap has been lifted. Yeah. I mean, that opens up whole new possibilities. So take us through that transition and what it means for the company.
Yeah. So that transition was a day in May when we all got the news that the asset cap was lifted. And the asset cap, for people who do not know what that means our bank balance sheet couldn't grow. And it's a little bit like running with one lung instead of two lungs. We couldn't grow, we had not the oxygen to do that. The day that asset cap was lifted, by the way, Bloomberg had the scoop. You all knew it faster than we knew, but we heard it through Bloomberg. Everybody still remembers where they were. Everybody still remembers that moment because we were for 7-8 years bugged down, working hard to remediate the whole bank from the situation that we were in and where we came out. We also knew that the moment the asset cap was lifted, the expectations would be, now you're going to grow. And Charlie Scharf, our CEO, always said it like, this is not a flip of a light switch type of growth. It's not like suddenly asset cap is lifted and now we grow like yanking crazy. That's not what it is. What you do is compound impact of all the things that we have been doing with a strong risk platform and foundation. But what we have been doing since then, and even before lifting the asset cap, quadrupling marketing in the consumer business, already growing checking accounts, already growing credit cards. We've been investing in CIB, the corporate investment bank, with hiring MDs and really building out advisory business. We have been investing in the branch network. If you have seen them lately, they look different than how they were looking 5 years ago, 7 years ago. We're opening new branches here in New York. Like we are on a roll here in New York, Manhattan, but also bigger New York metro area. We're opening in Chicago, we're opening in Tennessee, we're opening in Texas. We're open for business in that sense. We're hiring more bankers, we create more capacity for the bank to grow, also with the help of AI. And what you hear is, I think I used the word grow or growth 10 times in one sentence, so that you know the theme and the memo. That memo went out.
It did.
Yeah.
And speaking of growth, where do you see the technology growing? I mean, what are you keeping an eye on? What do you think is the next thing that you'll be working with?
Gosh, Lisa, that's a hard question, because if you would ask that 5 years ago, nobody would have said like generative AI will be completely mainstream. We even didn't know what it meant. So I think there's this technology where suddenly there's a popping moment. And AI had this popping moment in 2022 with ChatGPT and the release and the announcement of ChatGPT. It was popping. Like suddenly AI became mainstream for everybody in the street, everybody at home. You all have it on your phones. We all use it every day. There's one thing where I think this could happen as well is with quantum computing. And I've been talking about this for the last 10 years. There could be a set of researchers now, 5 people in a room, who are finding out how to make it more scalable and more stable in the outcomes of quantum. And if that happens, then we have no idea in this room what type of compute power becomes available. And then you start to think about AI and the level of increased intelligence that is happening and still happening. Then you start to look at the compute power by quantum compute. And places like the markets, we call that the markets in banks, trading, the trading areas, they all run on large quantitative models. If we have all the power and all the data, then you can go, so that changes the whole dynamics of that industry. Yeah.
So on that same line, what concerns you? What are you worried about, thinking about where technology is going?
There's always like, listen, are we still knowing what is happening? Like, are we still conscious about it? And are we still making decisions that we feel like are our decisions? There's always the bad actor. Like I said, the ship and the shipwreck. So there's always someone who tries to exploit that new technology and use it for their own benefit at your expense. And I think there's something like, if I can make one call here, is keep on using your own brain. That is like, and that's our brains, if you actually start to look at it, student syndrome. We all went to college or school. When did you start to learn for a test? It was like only when it was needed, right? Because your brain is just not liking to be active that much. Cognitive effort is an uphill thing for your brain. Now, with the coming of the phone and generative AI, our brain is suddenly saying, great, I don't need to think anymore. The only thing that we need to do is just keep on thinking through, play chess, think about, read a book, think differently, challenge yourself. That's the only thing that I would say in terms of what is changing and are we still in control of our own lives. Use your own brain, I always say.
Good
That's
advice.
a Dutch remark.
Before we wrap up, I can't have the head of AI next to me and not ask how you use it on a personal level.
Oh, there's so many different examples. And I think the most important, what I never expected that I would do is asking, in this case it was ChatGPT, for advice to have a difficult conversation with one of the boys that we have. And I never expected that it would be so correct in terms of empathy, unintended consequences. If you use these words, avoid these words. It was a holy pistol that I read and I shared it with my wife. I said, I think we have a great script here. I never expected that would happen. I use it for anything that breaks in the house. You have the live function. So when the laundry machine was broken not so long ago, you just show the error and the way, and it gives you back like literally what you have to do, which steps you have to take.
Did you fix it?
Yeah, we fixed it. Yeah, no, it's not like a miracle because the thing really knows. They really know. The models are so intelligent because everything is loaded there. Yeah, those are 2 examples.
Those are 2. For me, it's put a lot of debates between myself and my husband. It's figured out, and who is the winner of that debate? That would be me. Well, thank you. It's a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me here.
Next up, we have my colleague, Romain Bosick. He's going to bring up his panel. They're talking about winning through innovation. Thank you.
We can actually move in the middle of this if you really want to here, but thanks to all three of you here. I mean, basically, three people from very different industries, but to a certain extent, doing very similar things, and obviously the way you're incorporating AI and other technology into your businesses. And I want to first start with the consumer-facing side of it all. And Carol, since you're sitting closest to me, we'll start with JetBlue, which I think most people in this room are familiar with the origin story. And obviously, it was an airline that really sort of started from day one with this idea of in-flight entertainment and other technological tools in the cabin for the consumer to make the experience a little bit different. How has that evolved over the last 26 years? I mean, what are you doing right now?
Yeah, so thanks. It's great to be with you all today. And yeah, innovation is in our DNA. We were the first airline to offer seat back entertainment. We were the first airline to offer free onboard Wi-Fi, and that has continued to be a big part of how we show up for our customers. Look, I think the things that have evolved over the last 25 years have been really around customers are much more mobile first. They are much more, and we have to meet them where they are. So a lot of customers today, they have no appetite for friction. I'm sure if you think about it and you think about how you shop and how you travel, each and every one of you probably just gets annoyed with all the different friction points that come in any of those experiences. So I think the place that we are most focused on using technology from a customer-facing standpoint is how do we remove as many friction points as possible throughout that journey, so that we have our legendary hospitality available for customers if they want or need it, but we don't require those friction points. So,
are there friction points in the beauty space?
Sure, there's lots of friction points. And I think, I have a view because I had just come from banking before I was now at Estée Lauder, and there's a lot of similarities because it's all around the consumer experience that you want to deliver. And, whether it's understanding online what I want to buy, what kind of product, what is the efficacy of it, how do I use it, what's the regimen that makes sense, what's good on my skin tone, and so all of the things. How do you bring the wealth of information in a simplified format to what consumers want in a very personalized way? So that's kind of the challenge.
Who's the more demanding customer, banking customer or the beauty customer?
Well, I think so. People in general are people, right? So I would just say,
is that a compliment or criticism?
I think, no, it's not. It's just sort of the reality of how is it that you really are where the consumer needs to be, a bit like you were just saying. And how do you give that experience that it's like 1 or 2 clicks and I have what I want? And then most importantly, how do I kind of buy it and have it sent to me as quickly as possible? Or when I'm in a store, how do I understand what it is, where is what I'm looking for, and how do I kind of interpret how you would use it? I think it's a lot about education as well.
But with regards to the friction points of just even making a selection, and I just want to draw the distinction between an airline. I mean, anyone who's booked a flight, you spend a lot of time looking for the right price, the right seats, the time, everything else. But the same thing with beauty products. It's, you're trying to find that best serum for your face, and you can spend an entire weekend just trying to figure out what's best or not. So how do you make that process easier, but more importantly, to make sure they actually buy something that's an Estée Lauder product?
Well, so, I think, again, being where the consumer is, and one example of what we had done, so buying fragrance is really difficult. So we created an AI scent advisor so that you can have a conversation with the large language model on what I like, what I think my friend or, whoever you're buying a gift, what they may like. And it kind of interprets that. It uses a taxonomy on your senses, on your olfactory senses, and the taxonomy that we use. And then it provides you with a choice. And we found that, our best sellers in stores or online are not the ones that people are choosing, because now all of a sudden it's just relating an experience, a memory, or something else. And then we kind of serve up, because we have all the data on exactly what the underlying scents are, to sort of satisfy a customer need. And we're seeing a 2x uptake once people engage with that scent advisor.
But even if they're not able to smell it in person.
Yeah, because the whole idea, so I don't want to maybe have to go to a store and kind of smell so we do an amazing job with our beauty advisors in stores, but we want to be able to provide that experience online. easy, simple, and frictionless as possible.
So Locke, you don't have a scratch and sniff program.
The what, sorry?
Paramount. This is for Locke.
No, nothing at Paramount like that.
Yeah.
Well, you never know. There may be a placement.
And just to be clear, so there's no friction between you and Carol. JetBlue does carry Paramount Plus and Peacock, right? Talk a little bit, Locke, about your use of it. And I know for you, it's not just the consumer-facing side of this.
Yeah.
It's also about what you're doing internally in the company to make things more efficient.
Yeah, I mean, like I think everyone's kind of heard Paramount in the news in various different degrees, and like just to take a step back with Paramount, like we've gone through multiple mergers over the last 6 years, so I'm kind of in the middle of almost my third one now.
Yeah.
So one of the things
Is that the last one?
I hope so. I feel like I've definitely got an M&A background at this point. But, you know, I think one of the things that we've noticed in, like, comparatively the first time we did this merger was, like, we were doing a traditional M&A. We were combining systems together. Like any, you know, the first question I got during those days was, like, how do I get email to be one email across the board? Over the last year, it's been a bit of a different story bringing Skydance in. It's been more, not necessarily about systems so much, but how do we make the experience, everything completely frictionless? So, you know, we've been really looking at AI as being sort of like a one-stop shop for folks. So imagine like when you hear a lot of the folks talking about all these bots and they're building out things, but then when you're bringing a company together, we went with sort of an approach of having like one bot coming in and answering like your IT questions, your finance questions, your HR questions, and trying to make the experience for employees, I would call it frictionless. Because like a lot of our employees have gone through a lot of change. They're trying to figure out, you know, what systems are out there. And so like our real push now is to make it as seamless as possible. Like we want an employee to, from the beginning of hire all the way to leaving the company to have like just a basic, you know, you should just be able to say, I want to buy a pencil, and I should just do it. I shouldn't have to know what my ERP systems are or what my, you know, whatever related parties are. So that whole networking and agentic feature has been something we've been driving towards.
But as you're building out these products, whether it's the consumer-facing side or internally, there is this question of making sure everything is cohesive, right? You're not just bolting on
Correct.
AI on top of systems, or are you?
No. Like actually the biggest challenge we have is a kind of a balance between our relationship with our enterprise vendors out there. So everyone knows that every enterprise vendor has some form of AI at different degrees of education. But there's also, on the other hand, a lot of new tools out there that enable building things much faster. We're not, you know, we're striving to be more of a media tech company, and so embracing that, you know, the new AI tools that you can just start developing on the fly. It's actually a little bit of an art in that respect, is that one minute I built something and then all of a sudden my enterprise vendor built something slightly better, you know, 2 months later. And so what we've built is like sort of I call it an agentic framework, where it's not supposed to be legacy rigid. Like it's not supposed to be something that if I build this thing, I can never undo. Like when you go into an ERP system, I like using that as a good example, those take a long time to stand up. So the way we're building this is a framework that covers both InfoSec, it covers the ability for us when we bring on new solutions, either it's an enterprise or we build it, follows a set of standards that's easy for us to plug in. And that's the key. It's like we should be able to take in and out different solutions, and it shouldn't be like a full-on orchestration to do it. So I think I would say we're at the early phases of it, but part of what we're doing as a company is we're not just tying it as an IT or a finance thing. What we're finding is that each one of our business units, you know, and we range from like your rights, your productions, your, you know, advertisement, all of them are kind of coming with us with different use cases, and having that sort of framework that we could repeat for all of those solutions is actually like you know, the most important thing we're doing right now.
I would assume, Carol, for you being an airline, that you have a lot of complexity as well, and making sure that things are cohesive across the board.
We do. We have incredible. We have an incredible amount of complexity, and there are so many things in our world that are outside our control. If you look back to the last 4 months, we've had 2 government shutdowns. We've had a Venezuelan airspace closure. We've had a blizzard, a snowstorm, and you name it. And so one of the ways that we try to also use technology for the benefit of our customers and our own internal crews is we've for example, leveraged machine learning to build a digital twin. that is predictive of our operation, and particularly kind of takeoff and landing times throughout the day for 48 hours in advance. And the reason we have invested so heavily in that is it actually gives our operating teams a leg up and a heads up to be able to be more proactive and anticipatory when things like this happen. Look, when you have no one hates to cancel flights more than we do, and no one hates to delay flights more than we do. Customers don't like it, we don't like it, it's expensive, it's painful. But when you have a big blizzard, like, there is no other option. And so when we're faced with events like that, we have technology that can help us to take in thousands and thousands of different pieces of data that are happening and changing real time, and to give our operators the ability to start being much more predictive about the decisions they're making. So they can actually see a decision I'm making now will create this problem tomorrow, and then make a different decision. So that's allowed us to help improve on-time performance in the customer.
So you've seen that improvement.
We have.
That's verifiable.
Yeah.
How much do you have to work, though, with, for example, the airport itself, and obviously the regulators and things like that? I mean, because, like as you said, a lot of this is out of your control.
It is.
Yeah.
Look, yes, we have a lot of different entities we have to work with, whether it's airport authorities, government authorities, regulators, other airlines, partners, all of them. And yeah, I mean, we work together as collaboratively as possible. And even with other airlines, we fight fiercely and competitively every day, but we also do belong to a broader industry that is trying to generally get customers where they're going on time.
I'm curious, and this is all for all of you, as you're rolling out these tools internally, externally, I mean, what has been sort of the response that you've gotten? I mean, there are a lot of people that have been distrustful of some of this technology, whether it's internally, it's going to take my job, and even externally. If you're going to a customer, for example, Brian, there's a trust factor. How do I know that you really are picking out the best scent for me, or not just driving me to, I don't know, say the most expensive cologne or whatever?
Well, I think it depends. I mean, on some of the things that we do, I think it's very interactive. So it's more of an experience than thinking about the trust factor. I think we see the trust because when people buy the product, they like it. And really, a satisfied customer is really what's important to us. And then really kind of training models so they get better and better, over time. And I think you just improve that experience. You improve the level that you can target what somebody really wants, and you learn from all the different people around the world that are using it. So, we have a great audience of people that follow and love our brands. So that's how, really kind of taking that data. But I would say in general, the trust factor, comes when you're trying to drive efficiency with AI and start using agentic strategies for workflow. And, people more immediately think about, well, we're trying to take my job away. And so I think kind of really showing people that we're trying to increase throughput, and we're trying to increase quality and move people to roles that are really more value add to the organization, and take away the things that in a lot of cases people really disliked. And employees, to what saying, the whole idea that it's really complicated to deal with a lot of different systems and technologies just to do the basic things, like I want to see my paycheck, I need to change something. You can really make that easy. So the cultural aspect, I think, is even bigger. The trust, how you treat people's data, you have to earn that over time.
Is it easier to do this with, I guess, your established customers, meaning the people that have already been repeats, or the new people that you're bringing in, maybe someone who hasn't actually touched a product?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's both sides of it, because as you think about social media and influencers and how we kind of utilize and understand what's really trending and what people really want, making sure we can connect that to either the products that we have, or because it's a new product we launched, how we can bring that with the education piece to consumers. I think that interplay is where you build trust, and doing it from the company that manufactures the product that people know around the world. I mean, people know Estée Lauder almost everywhere in the world. We're everywhere in every country. And so, different than new brands, maybe you didn't hear of one, I think you have to build trust over time, and that takes, a lot of brand building and brand equity.
Are you using this at all, Lox, for content creation at all, or even just tracking maybe what your viewers want to see, or maybe they don't want to see?
In the media space, AI is a very tricky area. So we had to kind of parse it in a couple of different angles. Like the stuff I was talking about earlier was definitely the enterprise productivity. As a company, we totally embraced it. It's kind of siloed off from like what you call the content piece of it. Content piece can be broken up into like two areas. One is like the actual creation of content, which is definitely a very, I'm going to call it a touchy subject in the sense of between all of the unions and regulations associated to it. But around the actual content creation, there's a lot of work that happens in a studio that you would think about, like the marketing creation, the actual supply chain. So there's a whole art we call the media supply chain, where literally when a production creates content and we need to get it out to Paramount Plus, Pluto, which is our free to air, and even to our broadcast, there's a whole set of, I'm going to call it QC and regulatory type of things that we need to look at to fit that. And you can imagine, think of it this way, before AI and before machine learning, someone's watching this. Ma'am, you watch an episode of Yellowstone, you gotta watch the whole thing, make sure everything, the editing, all the commercial breaks, everything is there. So everything we're doing now is, I would say, in support of the content and leveraging things like AI, and a lot of the hyperscaler providers are actually investing in this type of area. So being able to implement those type of solutions before and after content's created, and even like with the marketing pieces of it, is a huge win for us in that respect. But we're very careful about the actual content creation, because that, for given reasons, there's lots of, I'll say pitfalls in trying to touch with that.
You're nodding your head there.
Yeah. Really similar where I am in marketing and how we create content and use it and transcreate from there.
There's a power to all this too. There's also a cost, and I am curious as to how you're sort of measuring the potential return. I know there's been a lot of talk about ROI, but when you talk to a lot of companies, they say, look, you have to kind of look at it a little bit deeper than that. It's not necessarily just about what shows up on the balance sheets, that there is sort of a dividend that somehow gets paid back in other ways. I mean, for example, Carol, you're kind of talking about the idea of on time and reducing some of the I guess the friction with customers that I would think would maybe engender longer term more loyalty to the airline.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, the way we think about it is in a couple of fronts. There are, in the use of any technology that we employ, there are certainly areas where there is a hard cost savings. It's really easy to quantify, but there are also a lot of areas where the value of a better decision or the ability to have a better prediction, or the ability to get to things that we're not getting to today, the ability to provide customers more choice, all of those types of things are things that are a bit harder to quantify, but they show up especially in things like Net Promoter Score, which you can kind of translate into real ROI. And so a lot of times, a lot of the ROI benefits that we measure are maybe second and third order, but they're still very real and very measurable.
I am curious though too. I mean, you came from the world of banking. I know you started out, Carol, in airlines, but you spent a lot of time at Pizza Hut as well. And I am curious as to whether there are any parallels between sort of maybe what you were doing in the restaurant space and what you're doing today now back at JetBlue. So
fun fact, that was the question Robin Hayes, our former CEO, asked me in my first interview at JetBlue. He said, what on earth did you learn in pizza that you think could be helpful in an airline? So I'll give, I think, a similar answer because I guess it worked out. Look, I think pizza is actually a lot more complex than you think. It is nowhere near as complex as an airline, but it is actually a lot more complex than you think. And a delivery fleet is in some ways not that different from, a fleet of delivery drivers and delivery vehicles is in some ways not that different from an airline purchase. For an airline fleet. I think the big differences between the two, pizza is an immediate, instant gratification purchase. I'm hungry now, my family's hungry now, I want food now, and if there is any friction in the process, I will just go to a competitor. Whereas airline choices are a little bit more thoughtful, obviously a higher price point, and a longer transaction with the customer. But that sort of appetite for, or lack of appetite for friction, I think is one of the things that I became passionate about and have tried to translate to JetBlue. So.
Okay, I see where Robin gave you the job. But, I guess, but on that point of friction too, can we go to like sort of the end of that process? So whether, when you're actually buying the ticket, I know you have, tried some different payment models with Venmo, but I am curious also on the retail side with Estée Lauder, the idea of making sure that as somebody goes through that process, and I know particularly with e-commerce, we've seen this a lot, people abandon those carts when they get to the end for a wide variety of reasons. So how do you sort of get that across the finish line?
Yeah, so I mean, for us, I've been there less than a year, and sort of the first thing that we're doing is we're modernizing the whole consumer experience, but in a unified commerce approach, so that we understand whoever the consumer is in a store or online or wherever you may be, that we understand what you bought, what you liked, what you didn't buy. And so I think the idea that you can really quickly understand data and connect it to people, what they like, personalize it in trends, like that really transcends everything. And that's how like the real ROI for us is, are we selling more and are we selling more profitably? So we can measure both factors when, if you go through, we know that somebody abandoned a cart, and then we could actually retarget them. We can actually then personalize maybe a promotion or a discount or something else, and we can learn exactly why we think they abandoned the cart. And the data, the large language models have never been so important, and very, very similar, whether it's in banking or I was in Pepsi before, so I was in a lot of different places, and the idea of data as an asset has never been more critical, and that relates directly to how you can serve customers, how you understand them, and how you drive your top and bottom line.
And for Paramount, I mean, that has to be really valuable. I mean, obviously, having a streaming service compared to sort of the old way of tracking, eyeballs on TV through Nielsen boxes or at the movie theater through box office receipts, I assume the data you're getting from streaming has to be pretty invaluable.
Oh, yeah. It's not even just the streaming and the linear ad sales research and information that we get. The other factor is just where's our content? Like for us, like we have content, I should know the amount of years that we've been out, but we have content back from the 60s and 50s that, we have a treasure trove there. And being able to not just look at the research, but also look at what content is available to us, and as things come up, and being able to pull from that archive in a, much more in less manual ways is a huge piece for us.
Is that like you toggle it based on what seasonality? We get our Christmas movies around.
It's either that, or even when a breaking news happens, we can go back to 60 Minutes and pull archives from the 70s that might relate to, if someone passes away. That's, being able to do a lot of that like research, and then being able to correlate that information so we could use it for new content. Yeah. I mean, especially as a franchise business, being able to like take Star Trek and being able to constantly use the previous like the footage and information that helps us create new content. It's just, that's a very powerful thing for us.
Because in the old days, it was basically some guy in a basement who had to go through, actual physical tapes to find.
It literally was, and we still are, having big machines that could literally take those things and digitize it. So that's. But once you have it digitized, even just doing the vector embeddings into those things and being able to easily search across the board is a huge win for both the streaming and even just deciding what we're going to create in the future. Yeah. Because the other part of it is actually the rights associated to all this content too. The licensing and rights, and then tying that together. You can imagine like in a media space being able to, the data science side of it is very extensive in this, because being able to pull all that together and be basically even saying, can we distribute this content in England or the U.S. it's an art with some of these contracts that have lasted for years.
Carol, I'm curious as to how you would use that, kind of in the same vein, but more on the dynamic pricing. Obviously, airline prices adjust based on demand, based on weather, availability of planes, et cetera.
Yeah, we're not really using AI in that way. I mean, we have always, and most airlines have always looked at demand-based pricing, and so we continue to do that in the same way that we always have. But we do look at ways that we can offer customers a more personalized experience overall through their shopping on our digital channels and even in the airport.
Shopping for Estée Lauder products?
Maybe, I don't know.
I hope so.
Yeah, we can see.
Absolutely.
But you also introduced bags electronically.
We
So
did.
you know that it's on the plane, I guess.
Yeah, so pointing back to that friction point that I started with, we recently introduced the ability to track your bag, also the ability, if you have an air tag in your bag, to share it with us, so that if something were to happen, which is rare, but occasionally it does happen, then it helps us to retrieve that bag and find the bag sooner. And then, we've been very focused also on frictionless payment capabilities as well. So, yeah.
Yeah. And Brian, I am curious on that front. I mean, I know that in the retail space, I know dynamic pricing is kind of a dirty phrase that nobody wants to talk about. But has there ever been discussions about that? I mean, a little bit more of I guess, meeting, even if it's not necessarily changing the price, but maybe adding things on or subtracting things on.
feels like something's changed. I don't know.